Movie director Roman Polanski is to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from Switzerland. You know the Swiss, those people who said, don't fight the Nazis. Anyway, the man raped a little girl, Roman Polanski. Look, he's a talented movie director. Yes, I understand that, but he raped a little girl. He fled the US and is sentenced. He's a wanted sex criminal. Arts and culture writer Rick McGinnis, an expert on sex crimes? No, you're not that, but you're an expert on arts and culture. Now,
I'd like to think so.
Polanski is a very gifted movie maker.
Yes, he is. But you must have seen Chinatown or one of his films.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with Polanski is I was once a very big fan of his films. And then there's the point, and this happened to me with several artists, where you realize after a while there's a commonality. And the commonality of his films is that they're all based on a sensation you have when you say about 10 or 11, and you stay up till midnight. You go downstairs and your parents are having a wild party. And you look and you see adults.
How were you
stuff.
brought up? My parents didn't have wild parties.
Nor did mine, but I'm just conjecture. So you look and you see adults doing stuff that seems to you wrong because they've told you you shouldn't do this stuff. But you see them do it, and at the same time you're sort of disgusted and shocked. But you're thinking to yourself, but they're adults. I'm supposed to follow their model. That's what all of his films are based on. This sensation of wondering, of having the curtain pulled back and morality being shown.
But it's not
sham.
the quality. I mean, look, I think there'd probably be consensus he's a gifted artist.
Yes,
but that's hardly the point, is it?
No.
Steven Spielberg, I mean, we're not even talking about French, European movie makers here. Spielberg knows how to make a movie. He does very well. But if he had raped a child, I think there should be... Now, the incident was... how old was this little girl?
She was 13. This was in 1977. And her mother was sort of a wannabe actress.
Mother was repugnant.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure you could probably make an argument for that. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for this family because, I mean, she just basically wanted to, I don't know whether she or her daughter, I don't know whose career she was trying to advance by putting...
The kid was 13.
She was
a 13-year-old may want to be lots of things, but she's 13.
She was 13, and she was basically put in the path of a man who was known to have a predilection for younger girls.
Yeah.
One of many, I'm afraid, in Hollywood. This is not uncommon in that industry.
I mean, Hollywood, the people who tell us how to behave and shape our morality.
Yes.
There's quite a few pedophiles and...
Yes. Really. Well, I'm afraid there is. I mean, recently there was...
Was she drugged?
Yes, apparently she was like a half a Quaalude or something like that, which, really doesn't take much when you're 13.
Right. So he drugged a 13-year-old girl.
Yes.
And he raped her.
Yes, and I believe one of the charges levied against him was sodomy as well.
Right. So this is a grown man who rapes and sodomizes a 13-year-old girl after he's drugged her.
Yes.
He is then surrounded by the normal defense mechanism of Hollywood, but the judge says, well, he goes to the judge and he's about to be sentenced. He thought he'd made an agreement that the sentence would be relatively light.
Yes.
He then found out, in fact, it might fit the crime.
Well, see, this is the thing. There's a movie that came out a couple of years ago when the first when the scandal about Polanski erupted again. It was an HBO documentary called Roman Polanski. It's an interesting title, Roman Polanski, Wanted and Desired. And this comes from a line from a French friend of his. He's now living in exile in France, who says that in America, Roman is wanted. In France, he is desired. Yeah,
well, that's the French. So he had managed to work with his very, very expensive lawyers and speak to people to say, look, okay, you did this, but we'll give you a slap on the wrist. Then the judge, he finds out, actually, you might get at least half the sentence you deserve and spend some time in prison. And he says, no way, and he flies off to Europe.
There are some mitigating circumstances. The judge he was given was a publicity hound who was basically being fairly deceitful in his dealings with both the prosecutor and the defense.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying this in any way excuses what he did.
No, because
he still admitted.
If Joe Bloggs the plumber, had drugged, raped, and sodomized a 13-year-old girl, he'd be in prison.
Yes.
And so should Polanski.
Yes, but somehow this doesn't work this way.
Right. And actually, just, you know what we'll do here? Whoopi Goldberg, well-known intellectual and complete bubblehead. Ouch. Let's hear her on The View, where all the intellectuals get together to discuss what goes on in the world. And hear her talking about Roman Polanski and buggering little girls,
please.
This is
going to hurt.
Was not charged. I know it wasn't rape. There is a
statutory.
Child molest, maybe? I'm not
think
sure
it
what
was something.
No?
It was something else, but I don't believe it was rape. And when we get all the information, somebody will tell me in my ear. All I'm trying to get you to understand is when we're talking about what someone did and what they were charged with, we have to say what it actually was, not what we think it was.
What he said he did. He gave her Quaaludes. He gave her
Enough, please.
champagne.
If I hear any more of Whoopi Goldberg, I'm going to die. I've got enough of that. I said, Whoopi, it wasn't lynching. It was lynching, but it wasn't lynching. She's an idiot. However, she was one of the majority.
Yes.
Hollywood, the whole celebrity apparatus, and this is what, was it a year ago, 2 years ago, when it seemed that he was going to be in trouble again because he'd gone to a country where he actually could be sent.
He had gone to Switzerland to accept the award that he is now being given again.
Right.
You have to understand, Roman Polanski is not merely celebrated, he's a member of the Académie Française.
Yeah.
That is one of the most, I mean, in that French love of bureaucracy, even in culture, this is one of the most august and reputable entities in all of France. I mean, this man, it's like a knighthood practically. Yeah. And they're perfectly aware that this is what this man has done, that he is a fugitive from justice, but this doesn't matter. So he's in a perfect environment there where nobody really cares to look at this askance.
When Hollywood, with one or two exceptions, when it seemed the Swiss were going to allow him to go to the United States to face a fair trial, when they rallied around him, it wasn't surprising because this is the most dysfunctional community in the history of humanity. And I know that sounds rhetorical, but if you think about it, it actually is true. The degree of psychiatric help and therapy, marriage breakdown, sexual perversion. Last night we saw these people on TV getting their awards. What was
Emmys.
The Emmys, yeah, I saw a bit of it, but half of them there are people who couldn't hold down a normal job. They're dysfunctional types, but they're getting paid huge amounts of money.
But this is the perfect world then.
Yes.
Well, you have to understand why Polanski has been defended. There's a lot of reasons for this. Number one, you're aware whose house this was where this happened, right?
Yes.
It's Jack Nicholson's house.
Yeah.
And Jack Nicholson is, even though he's a bit of a graying lion now, he's an incredibly powerful man in the framework of Hollywood. So he's always had Nicholson and Nicholson's coterie of people, which is everyone from Warren Beatty to Robert Evans, Lou Wasserman, a whole bunch of people to defend Polanski's name. In addition, there's this thing that there's a sense of guilt about Polanski because the way his wife was murdered by the Manson
Which is
family,
terrible.
Which is awful.
But what's it got to do with a child being drugged and raped?
No, it's got nothing to do with it, but let me just explain. Hollywood feels, still at that point, felt an enormous amount of guilt for what happened. You see, at the end of the 60s, Hollywood was flirting with the counterculture massively because their ticket receipts were failing and they needed to connect with a new audience. So they were entertaining people like Charles Manson and his family, who basically got too close, and then Manson felt he was being burned, and he sent in his family. So, Sharon Tate was a victim.
So the Hollywood that tells us to vote Democrat if you're American, to be liberal, support same-sex marriage, family's a bad thing, Christians are all mad, George Bush is a war criminal, they're not really always the best people to tell us to do anything at all.
I think they're actually usually the worst people to tell you.
You are a star, sir. Thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Michael.